Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 82, featuring the top 5 run of 5 episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse, and I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast. And tonight, we've got a fun one for you. I'm super excited about this topic because after researching it here the last couple of weeks, man, this one is going to be dense with some Trek. We're going to be talking about more episodes of Star Trek than on any previous episode of TrekRanks, and that's because we're doing our top 5 run of 5 episodes, which is a little bit of a mouthful, but that means we're picking 5 different runs of 5 consecutive episodes that we think are the best runs in Trek history. If that doesn't make any sense, we're going to break it down a little bit more here in our Diagnostic Cycle in a minute, but first, let's introduce our guest tonight. For a topic like this, we needed a couple of Trek experts, and that is exactly what we have tonight. Our first guest has been with us 5 times previously, including, I think, most recently on episode 49, our top 5 courtroom showdowns, which, by the way, is one of our most popular episodes. It's Mr. Matt Hansen. Matt. I'm
here. It's so good to be back podcasting. I haven't done a podcast, I want to say, in about a year since Upper Pylon 2 wrapped up.
Yeah, and you are prolific because you've done, what was the Voyager one called?
The Delta Quadrant.
All Voyager and all Deep Space Nine, yeah.
Right.
All right, and then our other guest tonight is another one of our favorites. He is making his 7th appearance tonight, Mr. Bill Mann. Are you there, buddy?
I'm here. Thrilled to be here. Been looking forward to this since we talked about it. It's a nice break from the monotony of quarantine. So, really excited to dive in.
Yeah, we are in, last week you guys heard our Sheltered in Place episode, and hopefully it's coming to an end here soon, but who knows? All right, let's jump into our TrekRanks recalibration.
What are you recalibrating?
Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
First up, as regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 here at the TrekRanks podcast is that we love Trek, and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. It's just an excuse to talk about what we love about Star Trek. And as our good friend, the Vulcan Master, likes to remind us each week, the main driver for all of our discussion here at the TrekRanks podcast is
infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
No wrong answers. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's just about sharing the things that we love about Trek. So we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery and Short Treks and Star Trek Picard as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through Discovery Season 2, all of the second season Short Treks, and now, of course, through that first amazing season of Star Trek Picard. And one final reminder, we use the term episodes as a shorthand, but the 13 films are always in play as well. Very curious to see if a film gets selected tonight.
Hailing frequencies are open.
And you can find TrekRanks on the net access interface links at trekranks.com, and you can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. You can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, Matt and Bill, why don't you guys let everybody know how they can get a hold of you on the net access interface to talk some Star Trek. Matt.
So probably the easiest way to get a hold of me is I am on Twitter at mhansen0207, HANSEN, talking Trek and blasting trolls.
He does like to blast trolls. It's fun. Somebody's got to do it. Bill, how about you, man?
You can find me on Twitter at TrekFan4387, usually much slower this time around, going through rewatch, reviewing episodes, talking about episodes. And you can find me on Trek Live on YouTube, where my good friend Dan and I do pretty much weekly live stream, very casual conversations about all things Star Trek.
Love Trek Live and love how much Bill also ranks Trek. So, okay, let's activate our level 1 diagnostic to get into today's show.
Diagnostic cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
Okay, so really quick, just going to break this down really fast. What we mean by 5 consecutive episodes of Star Trek in compiling a list of top 5 runs of 5 episodes. So this isn't like one list of where you're picking 5 all the way through. It's 5 lists of 5. That means you're going to pick 75 episodes, or we're going to pick 75 total episodes of Star Trek in this podcast. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. So you can look at it by production order. You can look, I mean, everyone knows that The Man Trap was like the 8th episode of Trek ever produced, but it was the first to air. So you can also do broadcast order. You could get really fancy and you can mix up series, because there's about 7 years there in the 90s where there were multiple series on the air at the same time. So the production could have been mixed, or the broadcast dates could have been mixed. Lots of different ways to look at it. And then there's the films too. So you've got like in Enterprise there was a film, in early TNG there was a TOS film. So a lot of different ways to pick 5 straight episodes, and I'm excited to hear how everyone's going to break this down in our Prime Directive, which we're going to get into right now.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
Okay, so Bill, let's start with you. How did you define your Prime Directive in order to finalize these picks? Because it's complicated. I was just doing like math everywhere. I was trying to figure out every different angle. So I'm curious how you broke it down. And did you kept it to one single criteria, or did you mix it up? So let's hear it.
I was tempted to mix it up. When I rewatch, I tend to rewatch like chronologically, mixing shows. So I have that at my disposal. I have a spreadsheet that has all this data and air date orders and stuff. But I decided to stray away from that and to stick with series-specific runs of episodes. I figure I'm looking for runs of episodes that are demonstrative of that show's writing staff and production team, like hitting a stride and pumping out really good work consistently. So I went that way, and I'm willing to have an interesting misfire in the mix of the 5 if it's an interesting misfire. Like if it can't be a dull, boring, derivative kind of weak episode, it's got to at least be something that has some meat on it to chew on and talk about. So I wasn't hung up on it's got to be 5 straight B+ or up kind of grades or anything like that. I was willing to mix in a weaker episode if it was okay, interesting to talk about. And then it's essentially, to boil it all down, it's basically if I was going to sit down and watch 5 episodes tonight, it's got to be a set of 5 episodes I'm really excited about. Like,
okay. And so it was by series, but was it broadcast order or production order?
Broadcast order.
Broadcast order. Okay, that's great. And you're going to be forgiving on your 5. That's interesting.
A little bit.
Matt, how about you, man? How did you break it all down?
Yeah, I wish I was creative, but being sheltered in place so long, all of my cognitive functions have gone out the door. Living like a caveman now. So basically, what I did is I looked through what I consider some of my favorite seasons of Star Trek, and tried to pick a run of 5 episodes that I liked all the episodes, or there was a couple that I loved, but generally the runs that I pick all have episodes in it that I like.
Okay, and did you? So you stuck with series?
I stuck with series because, like I said, not creative today.
All right, so I think I went Beautiful Mind on this one because I was like putting every list together. I even looked at chronological by star date for a while there. So
wow.
I don't know. I think I ended up actually picking one that was chronological.
Clearly, self-isolation hasn't gotten to you.
Well, I used this as my way to stay engaged. No, that's not true. I do this anyway. All right. So, yeah, I was all over the place. I wanted to cover as much ground as I could. Yeah, I looked at by series. I looked by production schedule, by air date, by star dates. I mixed it up. And that 7-year window really, I ended up focusing a lot there because there's a lot of mixed moments where I think they really excelled. And then I wanted to stay away from big, grand episodes. There's a couple in here, but it was maybe a little too easy just to look at the end of seasons and beginning of seasons where there were some some big heavy hitters, so I kind of stayed away from that. I tried to find some real quality and underrated rewatchable episodes. And, I'm the opposite of you, Bill. I tried to stay away from, I really wanted that fifth one to be really good as well. So not that you're giving anybody a free pass, but I really wanted to make sure it was just 5 really, really high-level episodes that rank high for me on TrekRanks. I even looked at the TOS remastered episodes and when those – remember when they produced those, they did them out of order. So I looked at that just to kind of get a taste, and I was like, "Oh hell no!" Because they did all the best ones first, So it's just for 20 straight episodes, just like the best of DOS.
I was going to say you could tell which ones were the good ones by the way they chose to remaster them.
Yeah, exactly. Although curiously, Mary was the first one they did. So, but after that, it was like nothing but five star. Yep. So, in the end, all 5 of my lists were different combinations of a Prime Directive. So I have broadcast order, production order, chronological order, all of those. So I do have that. I did a lot of considering on this one, and it was hard for me to narrow down. Okay, I think we're ready to have Third Emoticon introduce us to the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, Third Emoticon. And as always, just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease our picks. Then we'll reveal our top 5 run of 5 episodes and the specific reasons we're highlighting that stretch of 5 straight episodes. And at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if you have any duplicates, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedo. But I'm thinking we might not have any duplicates tonight. Who knows? It could happen. Okay, Matt, let's start with you, man. What's your round 5 pick for your top 5 run of 5 episodes?
Okay, number 5. This is the only reason that this is number 5 is because of the recency effect. I try to be fair in ranking them, to not be so biased as to think it's the best just because it came out so recently. But I have to say, one of my favorite seasons now of Star Trek is Discovery Season 2. And so my first run, which I hashtagged as hashtag Pike and Spock Sexy Trek, and it goes for the 5-episode run from An Oboe for Sharon through If Memory Serves. So that's Oboe for Sharon, Saints of Imperfection, The Sound of Thunder, Light and Shadows, and If Memory Serves. And part of the reason I chose this is aside from being, cheeky with my hashtag, Discovery Season 2 really did something that I wasn't expecting. I kind of thought it would, but it did something for me concerning the character of Pike. It was a character that we kind of barely knew from, a 2-part episode, and we knew him in an alternate timeline. But as far as the Prime Pike goes, we never really learned much about him. And then through the course of what was it 13 episodes? He went from, for me, not knowing much about him to contender with Picard for my favorite captain. And I think each of these episodes highlights not only him, but some of the characters that, as much as I liked Season 1 of Discovery, kind of dug deeper into this now that we didn't have the threat of war going on. Something like Oboe for Sharon, I started with that because, of course, that one's the one with the sphere, and that ended up coming up later in the season as a connection to the greater story. But what I liked about that episode in particular was that when you didn't know that was going to play a bigger part, it felt kind of like a classic Star Trek episode of they're on their way to something and they run into a problem.
Right.
And so that's why I started with that. And then I ended with If Memory Serves because that episode just was continuity heaven. And I hoped when the season started that they would at least reference in passing The Cage. I didn't expect a direct sequel to The Cage.
Yeah, that, and then of course Through the Valley of Shadows. This is awesome. This is a great consideration. Oboe for Sharon is one of my favorites because of the sphere and the fact that at when it came, you thought it was kind of a MacGuffin, but then it ends up being this critical, important element of the whole series, and I just love it. The effects in Saints of Imperfection are amazing. I love that whole half mycelial, half real space, those effects going on with Discovery. And if memory serves, you just said it, it's like the continuity here. I never had the thought when this episode was coming. I knew they were going to Talos 4, but it never even occurred to me that we might see Vina. And I just remember losing my breath when that one scene when Burnham's outside the shuttle and she kind of looks back on it and a woman walks inside the shuttle from a distance. I'm just like, oh my, holy shit, is that Vina?
Plus, you gotta love how the recap at the beginning of that episode doesn't recap the season; it recaps the cage.
Yeah, one of the great meta moments in Trek there as well. Bill, what's your take on this 5-episode run of Discovery? Awesome.
I love it. I love that the opening of Ennoble for Sharon features a long scene between Burnham and Pike talking about Burnham's reticence for like re-engaging with Spock and seeing Spock again. And the payoff at the end of this 5-episode run is, if memory serves, which is kind of unlocking Spock and Burnham and their past and their connection, and them kind of leveling with each other through the Telosian. So there's kind of a perfect beginning and end there in that 5-episode run. If memory serves, is my favorite episode of Discovery, and it might be my favorite episode of New Trek, Picard Discovery put together. So anything involving that, I'm 100% down for. Love it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that Burnham Spock stuff, because those scenes were absolutely incredible. Really, really dramatic stuff. I love it. Okay, Matt, I'm going to ask everybody, what's your weak link out of these 5?
It's real hard to say. I guess Saints of Imperfection is kind of a bridge episode, so I kind of would choose that. But at the same time, I like it so much because it gives it's such a good character episode for Stamets, who's obviously a character that I connect with.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the weakest of all of them, but that just goes to show how strong I thought Discovery Season 2 was. I'm
just curious in terms of the breakdown. Okay, Bill, let's hear you. How about what's your first list of 5?
I'm also going new school Star Trek. My 5 words and a hashtag. Discovery's entire Mirror Universe saga. Hashtag risky choices pay off. And it is Into the Forest I Go, Despite Yourself, The Wolf Inside, Vaulting Ambition, What's Past Is Prologue from Season 1. It is the entirety of their time in the Mirror Universe. So I liked it for the fact that it is such a confined, like, beginning, middle, and an end journey. It's the closest thing that we get to a 5-part story, I guess. We get 3-parters in Deep Space Nine and Enterprise, and lots of 2-parters, and wider, like, serialized season stories. But this is like a 5-episode, kind of easy to lock in. It's this 5 episodes telling a distinctive story. And like I said, I think it kind of pays off a lot of the choices that Discovery made from the beginning with Lorca and his identity and where he comes from and how it all connects. And I feel like it was a thing that could have gone wrong. It could have been too fan servicey. It could have been too obvious of a choice. Let's go to the Mirror Universe again. But I think they threaded the needle pretty well. And I think this is one of the lists that has a interesting misfire for me personally. I'm not a huge Vaulting Ambition fan, but I'm willing to roll with these 5 because I think it operates together so well.
Interesting.
Part of the story.
I would say Vaulting Ambition, it's part of the weak link, but then again, it also has Empress Giorgio.
I know that
Empress Giorgio's frisbee of death, which makes it like.
And I love the Burnham escape through the Jeffries too. I actually like Vaulting Ambition. I think it does what it needed to do, but I consider these 5 as well. Into the Forest I Go is just all time epic classic Trek. It's so strong.
And like you said, not only was this risky, this could have been a mistake just for the fact that this is happening in Season 1. We're just introduced to these characters and we're already going to the Mirror Universe.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
they totally went for it. It worked.
But it worked. And the fun thing about this run of episodes for me is Discovery Season 1 came out my second year of law school. And I had a group of friends who were also into Star Trek. So we ended up watching Season 1 together. We would just get together one night. We would order like a pizza and stuff and just watch a run of episodes. And I remember when we got to this run, and specifically 2 points. I remember when we got to the Wolf Inside, when we heard that the Emperor was coming in, And the whole time I was just thinking, please let it be Giorgio. Please let it be Giorgio. Because I wanted to see her back so badly. Because Michelle Yeoh's one of my favorite actresses anyway, even before Star Trek. And when it was, I think I screamed when we were watching it. And then the second one, I'm glad you included it because I think it's my favorite episode of season 1, What's Past is Prologue.
Yeah, it's up there.
It's a lot of action, but it's so good. And it just has one of my favorite moments. It's just a little moment, but I think is badass is when, what is it? I think Lorca like throws a knife and Giorgio kicks it midair.
Oh, yeah. That fight. I mean, that fight scene is amazing.
I mean, you get Michelle Yeoh and you get her to do her martial arts stuff. Oh my God, it's great.
Love it.
The hand-to-hand combat's great. I remember being like viscerally excited by the space battle of it. Just the kind of the throwback to old kind of Trek and with the spin, like with the fresh take on it. The whole mechanics of the Discovery having to kind of, fly through the middle of the giant mirror universe ship to like catch the mycelial matter to re-energize the whole like techno-babbly, nitty-gritty Star Trek-y stuff that kind of fuels that entire battle sequence. Just literally made me giddy the first time I watched it. It felt
great.
like I'm watching Star Trek.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, too, but What's Past is Prologue also has the Saru, we are Starfleet speech, which I thought was a defining moment for that character.
It does, and also the Culber reveal with the open your eyes moment, which is one of the most powerful of season 1. And then one more thing, the wolf inside. So well done. The reveal.
I love that episode.
Vogue. Okay, let's go to my round 5 and 5 words and a hashtag. DS9 did not need Worf, hashtag, but it sure didn't hurt. And of course, my series is Deep Space Nine, and I'm starting with a big one, even though I said I was going to try and avoid those. And my run here is at the end of season 3 to early season 4 of Deep Space Nine, the broadcast order from June 95 into October of 95. And the first episode is The Adversary, followed by Way of the Warrior, The Visitor, Hippocratic Oath, and Indiscretion. I love these 5 episodes. And by the way, the next 3 episodes are Rejoined, Starship Down, Little Green Man. So this is like an 8-episode run. That's just incredible. Anyway, it's for me, I love these 5. And one of the reasons I picked it is that it really showcases how awesome the Worf edition was, obviously with The Way of the Warrior being super epic and one of Star Trek's most revered episodes. But it also shows that they didn't need Worf because The Adversary is amazing at the end of season 3 where they're having that stuff going on down on the Defiant and they're trying to find a changeling and Odo ends up killing him. And then, of course, The Visitor is one of the most popular episodes in Trek, comes right on the heels of Way of the Warrior. And I think Hippocratic Oath is totally underrated. And Indiscretion is number 31 for me at TrekRanks in Deep Space Nine, which is hard to be that high on Deep Space Nine.
It's a big step.
And Indiscretion is amazing. It is a big step. I love these 5, and they really stood out to me when I was going through this. So, Matt, what's your take on these 5 episodes?
Well, me and DS9 is still my favorite series. And yeah, these 5 episodes are great. I mean, you're right. The series didn't need Worf, although it didn't hurt. The Adversary is fantastic. You combine 2 things that I love, which is basically like a hijacking movie and a little bit of John Carpenter's The Thing rolled in there.
Yeah.
Then, of course, Way of the Warrior is my gateway into Deep Space Nine. See, because when DS9 was running, it was always on late. When I was a kid, so I couldn't stay up and watch it, and it was hard to get into. So, but when I turned 14, 15, and they had the remember the days where where like Suncoast would sell like individual episodes on VHS. Mm-hmm. The first one I bought was Way of the Warrior because I figured, what better way to get into DS9 than to come in basically on what ends up being like a second pilot for the series. In that you're introduced to the characters through the eyes of a character that you already know. And so it helps be that gateway in. I love it. And I think you're right, too, Jim. Hippocratic Oath is very underrated.
Yeah, it's fun. How about you, Bill? What's your take on these 5?
Love it. It was definitely in consideration for me. I feel like you could go either with this 5 or you could push it up 1 and get to Rejoined and include The Way of the Warrior and kind of the beginning of season 4. But I love the way that you did that and included the adversary as the transition point for the show to change. And yeah, I mean, it always kind of strikes me when I watch. It's kind of a study of like the way two different shows can introduce a new character. Deep Space Nine, with its like vast cast of characters and recurring people popping in and out, Worf slides into Deep Space Nine pretty naturally, pretty quickly. Where with Voyager 7 and 9, equally as successful, I think it really rocks that show with her arrival. So
interesting.
It's always kind of been interesting to me to look at the two ways that those shows kind of reshuffled the deck by introducing a new character.
I like that. I don't think I've ever thought of it that way, but yeah, they kind of the same thing happening, both very different, because 7 really took over Voyager in some ways. I don't mean that literally, but
right.
Okay, let's go to round 4. Matt, what's your round 4 run of 5?
So speaking of Voyager, my favorite season of Voyager, hands down, is season 5. And so I tried to go down there and get 5 episodes that I think are some of its strongest, and I managed to do that. So my hashtag is character builds characters and awesomeness, because these are all kind of character episodes. So it's the run from Timeless to Counterpoint. So it's Timeless, Infinite Regress, Nothing Human, 30 Days, and Counterpoint.
Wow, I like this. It's a nice deep cut.
And like I said, the reason I like this is because not only do I think all the stories are good, but I think Voyager ends up working better. I mean, the exploration shows are great, but one of the things that I think season 5 did really well is that it developed a lot of the characters, hence my hashtag character builds characters. You know, Timeless, it's one of the few good Harry Kim episodes. Infinite Regress, I'll watch 7 do anything, especially when she has multiple personality disorder.
Yeah.
You know, Nothing Human, you get the great medical ethics debate, and Picardo rocks it. 30 Days, strong showing for Robert McNeil. And then Counterpoint, I think, is my favorite Janeway episode. Just because I love seeing at the end of it how she wasn't fooled at all the whole time. She just calmly sits in her chair or orders a different music piece to be played and just kind of waits for all the blustering from what's his name to stop.
Well, the bookend on these two, Timeless and Counterpoint, is just epic Voyager. They're I think well respected and all time great. And I considered this one. I didn't quite go there, maybe because of Infinite Regress, but I think Nothing Human is super underrated. And 30 Days is just so fun and rewatchable. I watch it. It's one of my go-tos. So I love this list, and I love that it's kind of a little mid-season nugget, just finding 5 episodes that are incredible together. Bill, what's your take?
I love it. I think it's like you said, it's a deep cut, although Timeless is such a massive, huge
of course,
moment for Voyager. But like there's not a misfire in that run. Like I feel like Infinite Regress, I would agree with you, Jim, is probably my weak link of that group. But I think it's a great Jerry Ryan performance. It's a real showcase for her. I'm 100% with you. I think Nothing Human is one of Voyager's more underrated episodes. I've always liked that one a lot. And Counterpoint, I think, edges up my list of Voyager episodes every time I revisit it. I think it's classic Star Trek and absolutely Kate Mulgrew at her best.
Yeah,
30 Days is great, epic, throwback science fiction story. So I think it's a really rock solid run of Voyager episodes that kind of are perfectly in line with what I think Brannon Braga's time on Voyager as a showrunner, seasons 5 and 6, kind of was trying to do. Like big concepts, but very centered on the characters. Like let's have a character. Like kind of like TNG did, obviously. We're going to focus on the character this week. But Voyager always kind of tried to weave in some bigger science fiction concepts like you get in, obviously Timeless and 30 Days for sure.
Yeah.
So really demonstrative of Voyager.
But I think the strength of these ones in season 5 in particular is that they had those sci-fi concepts, but they never let the concepts overwhelm the character.
Right.
That's what I admire so much about season 5.
Yeah, it's so good. And I had Krell Massette, the Cardassian from Nothing Human, on my villains, who's not really a villain list way back some episode of TrekRanks. Okay, Bill, what is your round 4-5?
I'm going to piggyback on Matt a little bit here. In my list, my 5 words and hashtag is radically different genres, no problem. Hashtag Star Trek is a Swiss Army knife. Voyager seasons 5 and 6, kind of an overlap here with Equinox Part 1, Part 2, Survival Instinct, Barge of the Dead, and Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy. Like Matt, I think all of these episodes feature the same kind of qualities. They are laser focused on a character. In Equinox's case, I think it's really a showcase for Janeway and her sort of introspective, her sort of, reflecting on the decision she's made when presented with the complete opposite what could have been. Survival Instinct's obviously a 7 of 9 story, Barge of the Dead. B'Elanna Torres and Tinker Tenor is obviously the Doctor. But what strikes me about this list is it's demonstrative of the Swiss Army knife idea of they're completely radically different. Yep. Barge of the Dead could not be more different than Tinker Tenor, Dr. Spy. But they're back to back, and they're both at home in the Star Trek kind of environment, which is my favorite thing about Star Trek, to be honest. If I really had to boil it down, I loved growing up and not knowing what to expect the next week at all. Like it could be anything. It could be a Western, it could be a comedy, it could be a romance. This is a list of 5 episodes that I love in varying degrees that are exactly along those lines, with the completely unexpected choices in genre and yet being about the character.
You said Barge of the Dead couldn't be any more different than Tinker Tenor, Dr. Spy, and it couldn't be any more different than Survival Instinct, and Survival Instinct couldn't be any more different than Equinox, and Equinox couldn't be these 4 episodes, the 2-parter, could not be more different from each other. I love this list. Super cool. I did look at this one as well.
None of them feel discordant, even though they're all different from each other.
Right.
None of them feel like
they all feel at home in the same show.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
I'd say my weak link of that bunch, if I had to pick one, would probably be Survival Instinct. Although I think that I always think that going in, but when I watch it, I think it's got an emotional punch at the end of it that really sneaks up on me every time.
Yeah,
it's better.
Super good.
It's always better than I remember.
I think I would say Barge of the Dead only because of my rewatchability scale, because that one's so dark and heavy.
It's so dark.
And it's just like, I don't always want to go watch that, but when I do, it's really, really impressive.
It is, but it's one of Ronald Moore's Voyager episode, which he's one of my favorite Trek writers.
Yeah, of course. Sure. The great Ronald D. Moore did that episode. Okay, let's go to close out round 4 with my 5-episode run, 5 words and a hashtag. Bajorans, Cardassians, plus 3 Picards, hashtag DS9 takes off as TNG ends. And this is a mix. So this is my first mix. And this one, by the way, is chronological by star date. So I mixed it up a bit. It's late TNG season 7, late DS9 season 2 from May 1994. The first episode is from Deep Space Nine, The Wire. The second episode, TNG's Preemptive Strike, with Ro Laren coming back. Then we have crossover. So we have another mirror, the return of the mirror universe to Star Trek from Deep Space Nine. Then All Good Things, of course, the epic finale of TNG. And then from Deep Space Nine, one of my underrated classics, The Collaborator, closes it out. So The Wire, Preemptive Strike, crossover, All Good Things, and The Collaborator. And just like the hashtag says, for me, this is like another kind of early peak for Deep Space Nine when they were just starting to really, really take off. And of course, TNG was ending on an amazing high note with Preemptive Strike and All Good Things. I love these 5 episodes, and I had to cheat a little bit to make it. I noticed these were together, not broadcast, not production, but they were chronological by star date in May of 1994. So I picked them. And Bill, what's your take on these 5?
I admire your innovative way to make that work. That's awesome. But it's a fantastic run of episodes. The Collaborator, I wouldn't call a favorite, but it's undeniably well written, and it contributes to the grander whole of the landscape of Deep Space Nine. And you got some real heavy hitters there with All Good Things, and The Wire, I think, is an all-timer. So it's another one. I think a lot of these lists are going to reflect what I was kind of just talking about, vastly different kinds of episodes, which is a big calling card for me, like I said. So I think your list achieves that, and for my money, there's not a misfire in the group. So I'm into it.
They did such a good job. The Collaborator for me is top 50 of Deep Space Nine. I just love the political intrigue of that one. And The Wire, of course, is top 25 because that's Garrick, and that's amazing. Matt, what's your take on these?
Well, it's so funny because I'm in the middle of like a franchise rewatch, and so I'm in season 3 of DS9 right now. So I just watched all these episodes that you just mentioned.
Oh, awesome.
And No, it's a great list. You know what? The Collaborator used to be an episode that I used to just brush off, and because I wanted to get to the Jemadar and all the awesomeness that came with that.
Feel that.
But when I when I had to watch it again for Upper Pylon 2, I really came away with a new appreciation for it. And having just seen it again recently, you're right. The political intrigue, it's a little slow moving, but I do like a good political episode. And that is a good one. So I agree with you. It's definitely underrated. Also, one that I think gets skipped over, just because it's coming down to the end, is Preemptive Strike.
Yeah, true.
It's definitely essential for the lore of the franchise, being that it's the next episode after the Maquis to feature the Maquis. And of course, it's also an episode that highlights why Admiral Nechayev is my least favorite admiral in probably all of Star Trek, because she has such terrible ideas.
Let her have it.
She has such terrible ideas. Like first the treaty, and then establish a dialogue with the Maquis, and let's send a Bajoran who saw all the horrors to infiltrate the Maquis and not side with them. What could go wrong there? And then of course it wasn't real, but in the search part 2, let's just hand over everything to the Dominion.
Yeah, okay, you can't
even in a simulation.
You can't hold that against her, but I love it.
No, but the fact that they used her to put forward a bad idea was just,
It was on point. Got it. All right, guys, Vedic Bareilly did it for Kyle Paca. Oh my God, I love it. Okay, let's go to the soup round. Matt, what's your run of 5?
So my run of 5, you're going to have to forgive me, Jim, because I went to Enterprise Season 4, but I couldn't include Awakening in this because I wanted
that is more than okay. I'm excited to hear some Enterprise.
I wanted to include episode, because Enterprise Season 4, of course, is a bunch of mini arcs. So when I chose my 5, I wanted to not interrupt any arcs. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get full arcs. But I think this still represents what Enterprise Season 4 was for me, and that's in my hashtag Star Trek Comes Full Circle.
Well, then I know for sure what your 5 are if you're not breaking up the arcs. I love it.
It's then you probably guess it's the one from Babel 1 to Divergence.
Correct. Yep.
And again, the reason I picked that run is because not only is it not broken up, but it does what I think it encapsulates what I think Season 4 does best, which is that it finally I loved Enterprise. Don't get me wrong, but I loved when it finally started behaving like a true blue prequel. Not that it wasn't before, but once you started tying in the stuff that we knew, for me it became a lot more exciting. And I still think the Vulcan trilogy is my favorite mini arc, but the Romulan arc is great. And I'm a fan of how the Klingons lost their ridges. That story.
Oh, good.
If for nothing else, then Trip's mid-warp transfer between the Columbia and Enterprise.
There's so much fun stuff happening in these 5 episodes. So, by the way, he didn't read them off, but it's Babel 1, United, the Aenar, Affliction, and Divergence. Yeah. So, first of all, the Reed and Trip stuck on the Romulan ship is some of the best stuff in Enterprise. I love that stuff. When Reed says, you're good at fixing stuff, and I'm good at blowing it up. The great line, all of the Romulan arc. And then what I always say about Affliction and Divergence is, boy, did we ever not need a reason for the Klingon ridges, but they crushed it. I love this story. I'm so glad they did it. It's a great in-universe reason for it. Makes perfect sense. And these 5 episodes rule.
Plus, everyone kind of hates on them, but I'm a sucker for Section 31, so the fact that they were able to bring Section 31 into Enterprise was great.
Me too. Bill, what's your take on these 5?
Love it. I echo, Matt, your sentiment about not wanting to break up the mini arcs, which gave me a headache because I really wanted to find a way to do the Vulcan arc, because it's for my money, it's maybe the peak. Enterprise at its absolute best is those 3 episodes. So you definitely found the 5 episode grouping that I think works best, and it was on my short list. I love the Andorian Romulan arc about Babel 1 to the Aenar. For all the obvious reasons, it's sort of the in the DNA of that show was going to be to get there to where that 3-part story was kind of starting to in the direction of. And then, like everybody said, the Klingon Ridge question is not something that was entirely necessary, but I love the way that they found not only to come up with a credible way to tackle it, but I like the way that it builds on the Season 4 story, that it's all kind of tied to the Eric Soong augment stuff. Like it all kind of stems from stuff that we've seen in Enterprise, which actually kind of grounds the continuity porn aspect of it. Like they're not even needing to like go too deep cut, too crazy, too off the wall. We're dealing with things that we saw happen in Enterprise this season that sort of led us down the road to have a problem that will answer this question that people have had for forever.
Also, with the Affliction and Divergence, I just got to hand it to John Billingsley and Phlox, because I don't know what it is, but exasperated Phlox or frustrated Phlox is one of my favorite things. He manages to be funny and serious at the same time, and I don't know how he does it.
He's one of the best actors in Star Trek. I really do believe that he, top to bottom.
Exasperated Phlox is awesome. Well said. So spoiler alert, I think I subconsciously did that too, where I didn't want to break up the season 4 arcs because I don't have Enterprise in my 5. So, and I really wanted to include them, but I wasn't able to do it. But I like the way you solved that with this one, Matt.
Yeah, and like I said, that just goes for the whole season.
Yep. All right, Bill, what's your soup round run of 5?
5 words and a hashtag. I'm going with Deep Space Nine finds itself. Hashtag edging into serialization. And I'm going with Duet, In the Hands of the Prophets, The Homecoming, The Circle, and The Siege.
Good choice.
So season 1 of the 2. Not the sexiest Deep Space Nine choice, because it's not. I think the temptation is always to kind of go to the later run, look for things in seasons 5, 6, 7, especially when you're talking about episodes in a run. And interestingly enough, when I went to those seasons, I would have a hard time finding 5 in a row. A lot of the runs I was looking at, there was a stinker in there. There was an episode I wasn't comfortable including. So I ended up, going back and looking into the early part of Deep Space Nine, and sitting right there is this run of 5 huge episodes that I think works really well together. They're really leaning heavily into the traits that make Deep Space Nine unique, especially at the time in these 5 episodes. Even the non 3-part episodes with Duet and In the Hands of the Prophets, while they're not directly connected to like a specific story the way the 3-parter at the beginning of season 2 is, there's a lot of groundwork being laid for the Cardassian, Bajoran, Kira, dynamic that they're going to play with for 7 years. Duet's obviously, for my money, like top 5 Deep Space Nine episode, one of the best episodes in all Star Trek. In the Hands of the Prophets, I think is super underrated. Love the kind of spin on Inherit the Wind, old classic movie that they're playing with there. And even there, like dealing with bigger issues, like dealing with things that you need to know the show to kind of get with the school and Keiko O'Brien not feeling, kind of taking away the one thing that she kind of has there to feel at home. Like the time they're dealing with serialization in a very real way early in Deep Space Nine. And it's a super round choice.
Yeah, this was my toughest cut. So these 5 together are amazing, and you're not wrong about trying to find like 5 in a row of Deep Space Nine. These really stand out. They are amazing, and I was hoping somebody would pick them because they ended up being my toughest cut. And everyone knows how much I love the Circle trilogy. That for me is
and I think In the Hands of the Prophets is like a prelude to the Circle trilogy.
Oh, for sure,
it is,
because
absolutely.
you start with the whole Hands of the Prophets thing is the beginning of like Bajoran unrest of the Federation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was just that realization when you're watching again when this was first aired. They're doing a 3-parter, and you had, back then you had no internet. I didn't know they were doing a 3-parter, and then the second one ends. It's like, oh man, there's gonna be a third one. This is incredible. So good. Minister Zaro, Frank Langella, so good.
In fact, I think the episode that leans the heaviest into the political intrigue of it, the more introspective character stuff, is The Circle.
Yeah,
Kira's down on the planet with Bareil, and down on Bajor with Bareil, kind of reflecting on her life and where she's going to go from here. I think that's the best stuff in the trilogy. I think that's
Or even the scene at the beginning of that one where it's Kira's quote unquote going away party. Where
it's great.
Just tense up in her quarters.
So good.
That's a very farcical scene where everybody's coming in and saying goodbye. It's awesome.
It is, but I also feel like when I watch it, it is absolutely it 100% is farcical, and it's the show playing with comedy for sure. Which is especially early Deep Space Nine. There's not a ton of that, but I distinctly remember like, through rewatches and even going back when I was a kid, I feel like that was maybe the moment when I realized how much I love these characters and how much I love this show's coming together. These cast is like melding.
Those scenes are amazing and palookas. Okay, let's go to close out round 3 with my 5. 5 words and a hashtag. Epic Run showcases Voyager's scope. Hashtag I like the way it looks now. And this is a Voyager run, consecutive broadcast air dates from early season 6 of Riddles, Dragon's Teeth, One Small Step, Voyager Conspiracy, and Pathfinder. And this is one, I think I ended up choosing this because I wanted to showcase at least one just incredibly strong, solid run of 5 straight episodes without having any big heavy hitters. So my other one, I had Way of the Warrior, I had All Good Things. We've heard, Timeless, Equinox, all kinds of big ones. This one is just 5 really solid episodes that I love. Riddles for me is just, that one is better for me every time I see it. It's 64 on TrekRanks, but that's probably too low. And Dragon's Teeth was supposed to be this big 2-parter, but they made it 1 part, and I just love how epic that one feels. One Small Step's one of the most emotional episodes in Trek history. Voyager Conspiracy is just fun. Every time you watch it, you don't know what's happening. And Pathfinder is just the heart of Voyager with Barclay. Great use of Barclay to get Voyager back in contact with the Alpha Quadrant. So, Bill, what's your take on those 5?
Really, like you said, it's a strong run of episodes. I'm kind of curious. I'm going to put you on the spot. Maybe not. Maybe TrekRanks is open and you can quickly look. But what's the highlight? What's the best of that run, and what's the weakest of that run?
Well, if I had to, so actually, this is funny because Riddles is the lowest on these 5 for me. Huh. And I think I need to update my rankings. I don't think I would necessarily say that. Probably maybe the Voyager Conspiracy. I don't know. These 5 are.
I love the Voyager Conspiracy.
Even for me, because the Voyager Conspiracy is so rewatchable.
It's another one that gets better.
Yeah, they got so much heart. So Dragon's Teeth 31, One Small Steps 12, Voyager Conspiracy 61, and Pathfinder's 53. So they're all kind of just right there.
So One Small Step's your top.
Oh
right?
yeah, that's that one. That should be top 10, but it's hard to rank Trek.
It is. I concur. Wholeheartedly.
Matt, what's your take on these 5?
I think they're great, and like you said, they're not heavy hitters, but they're all pretty solid. Dragon's Teeth, especially, I think, is underrated. And if you're like me and you play Star Trek Online, Dragon's Teeth has huge continuity with one of the episodes, series of missions in there. Really makes you hate the Vaadwaur because they're just so impossible to fight in the game.
Star Trek nerd.
Hey, I got to do something while I'm here at home.
All right. Okay, awesome. Let's go to round 2. And Matt, what's your round 2 run of 5 episodes?
So, of course, I wasn't going to go through this list without hitting DS9.
Of course.
And actually, this next run came about simply because I had just watched these episodes. Because, like I said, I'm about midway through season 3 in my rewatch. My hashtag is #new ship, new problems. So I'm going with the beginning 5 of season 3. So Search 1 and 2, House of Quark, Equilibrium, and Second Skin.
Oh, I very much considered these.
The Search, I mean, obviously is great. You get the introduction of the Defiant. Part 2 is a little bit weaker, but it's not terrible, and the end reveal is pretty awesome. The House of Quark is one of my favorite comedy episodes. If for no other scene than the entirety of the Klingon High Council on the Ferengi pads trying to figure out how to follow Quark's structure. I mean, they look about as confused as I do when people talk about math and business and stuff. Equilibrium, I think, is completely underrated. I'm a huge Jadzia Dax fan, obviously, and I think that this is such a creepy, fun episode, and it doesn't hurt that the way that Duran looks with the mask on, it's a very Michael Myers mask. And then Second Skin, I think, is one of the best Kira episodes. I think, as claustrophobic as Nana Visitor was in that makeup, God, it's such a good, intriguing little political episode, and the twist at the end is just great. So
good.
Season 3 for me starts off with a bang. 5 episodes.
I love this. I very much consider these 5. I think The Search is amazing. I love Dennis Christopher as a Vorta. He's one of my favorite actors. And House of Quark is amazing. I totally agree with you about Equilibrium. This is an underrated gem, and the ending of it is such a great reveal that, oh my gosh, she has a murderer inside her. Really, really cool. And I mean, what Second Skin, what can you say? That's as good as it gets for Deep Space Nine. Bill, what's your take on these 5? This is an awesome list.
It's awesome. Second Skin. It's always like, I feel like if you don't know it incredibly well and you've been away from it long enough, you watch it and you're like, is she? Is it possible? Right. Is this true?
Yeah, they make you. They almost have you believing it. They almost have you believing.
They really do. And it's the Now Visitor sells that. It's like you said. It's amazing as you read the stories about how claustrophobic she was and how difficult a time she had in that makeup. She delivers one of her best performances for sure in that episode because she does make that work. And then Equilibrium, I think, if you look at the season 3 trailer for Discovery from New York Comic Con months and months ago, I think
I hope that's
there's going to be there's going to be some continuity touches back to Equilibrium. I think
I really do, because as much as I love DS9 and as much as I love the Dax character, I wanted much more of Trill background. So I hope somehow that's the Caves of Impala.
I think it's happening.
Oh, I think it's for sure Trill. I'm excited about it, and who knows? It could even be Dax.
That's true. That's very true.
We'll see. All right, Bill, let's go to your round 2, round of 5.
5 words and a hashtag. Incredible quartet overrides interesting misfire. Hashtag 4 grade A episodes. I have Deja Q, A Matter of Perspective, Yesterday's Enterprise, The Offspring, and Sins of the Father. This is kind of the hallmark of
which is the misfire.
It's gonna be a matter of perspective.
That was a joke, yeah.
Definitely. But I feel like the other 4 are like kind of so integral to like the development of TNG. It's to me, it's like that run of episodes that is the clear stamp of like, this show has arrived. It is hitting on all cylinders. It can do anything. We're talking about the Swiss Army knife idea. These episodes are radically different. The Offspring could not be more different than Yesterday's Enterprise, which could not be more different than Sins of the Father. You get, Klingon lore here. You get, Data stuff that pays off shows later, literally now. Yesterday's Enterprise does things with continuity that, was unprecedented at the time, and the way they deal with a character that they killed and kind of retcon that sort of, but in the way only Star Trek can. Deja Q, I think you could maybe make a case that that's John Delancey's best work, humanizing that character, giving different shades to that character. One of Data's best episodes, I think, actually. I just rewatched these 5 too. These are literally the last 5 episodes I watched in my very slow. Glacially moving rewatch at this point, but it strikes me that those 4 episodes surrounding A Matter of Perspective are so good that I had to do it. A Matter of Perspective, I'll give it a pass. It is a misfire. It's definitely a misfire as far as I'm concerned.
I'm not the fool you take me for, Riker.
It's interesting though. Like I like the spin on Rashomon, which is an all-time classic. The different perspectives on the same event. Where does the truth lie? It's not a cookie cutter episode. It's not derivative. I don't find it dull. It doesn't work for me. It kind of lands with a thud. I never buy the mystery of it. I don't buy that Riker would have done the half of what he's being accused of, which kind of flattens the episode out. But I'll let it go because it's surrounded by classics I can't get rid of.
I had to look this up. The other 4 are all top 60-ish. Matter of Perspective is 129. I love the fact that you like these 4 so much that you're not going to let A Matter of Perspective put you off. You're a dead man, Bill. You're a dead man.
Gar. Or me.
All right, Matt, what's your take on? I mean, these 5 are. I mean, you're so right about those 4 just being defining TNG era episodes in season 3. There, Matt.
Well, I guess I'm the weird one because I've never had a problem with A Matter of Perspective.
Oh, I don't either. But
I always kind of liked that episode. If for nothing else, then I kind of like episodes where there's a question of what happened and you get to see different perspectives. Now, it's done better later with Rules of Engagement in DS9. I think.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Great example. Yeah,
but I don't know. It's kind of cool. And, as much as I can't, I wouldn't necessarily buy that Riker would do any of that. Just looking at it from a new perspective now as a lawyer, like, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the jury ends up believing.
Great point.
And so, and the evidence there looks pretty damning if you're an impartial jury. So,
it's true.
that's a weird tangent to go on, but it gave me a new appreciation for that episode.
Now I want to watch it again.
No, I like
in
it.
My mind.
I like that you're bringing the legal aspect of
yes,
it. So,
it's awesome.
Cool.
And the other 4, what can you say?
Yeah.
I mean, Ronald Moore makes the Klingons what they are in Sins of the Father, and Yesterday's Enterprise is an episode you can watch at any point, if for nothing else than to see Patrick Stewart do that great leap across the horseshoe to get behind to fire phasers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And The Offspring just took on a whole new meaning with Picard season 1.
Sure did. I was looking at my ranks, and my 5-word summary for The Offspring is on my website is Admiral Halftail is an asshole. So,
oh yeah, he's terrible.
He's terrible. Okay, let's close out round 2 with my list. 5 words and a hashtag. Alpha and Delta quadrants connected. Hashtag it's real and I created it. And this is a mix of mid-season Deep Space Nine Season 6 and mid-season 4 of Voyager. It's a broadcast run, and the 5 episodes are Message in a Bottle, Who Mourns for Morn, Hunters, Far Beyond the Stars, and Prey. And, I mean, it's hard to define any better how good these shows are than these 5 episodes happening consecutively in Star Trek on the air in early 1998 is just crazy to me. So you've got Message in a Bottle with the connection to Voyager being connected back home to the Alpha Quadrant for the first time, and Who Mourns for Morn, which is as fun as it gets, and then Hunters and Prey sandwiched around Far Beyond the Stars. I mean, Far Beyond the Stars is obviously quintessential Trek, and Hunters and Prey connect with Message in a Bottle with the Hirogen, and I just love the fact that these 5 episodes aired back to back to back. The 6th episode on this could have been One Little Ship, which is another fun one that I love from Deep Space Nine. But these are the 5 I went with, and I think it's a pretty big high point for Star Trek, and it's my round 2 selection. Matt, what's your take?
These are great, and you know, they're not a 3-parter in the way that the Homecoming is a 3-parter, but I always consider Message in a Bottle, Hunters, and Prey a 3-part story because they all kind of tie into each other. And it's some of the best Voyager, especially Message in a Bottle, which I have to think about it, but might be my favorite comedy episode. But no, that's some great stuff. And then, you know, Hunters, you get finally some consequence and some fallout from what happened to the Maquis and the Alpha Quadrant and how that affects people on Voyager. And Prey, I think, is a great episode, if for nothing else, that I think that Seven forces Janeway to confront something that she doesn't like about herself, in that so she disapproves of anything Seven does that would be different from the choice that she would make. I like that speech at the end.
Yeah.
I believe she says something to the effect of, "You're angry because I'm not like you," or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great moment.
And the DS9 stuff, of course, Far Beyond the Stars is amazing awesomeness, but people kind of sleep on Who Mourns for Morn, and I think having rewatched that for Upper Pylon 2, it was a lot of fun. I mean,
it's so good. It's clever. It's so silly, but it's because Armin Shimmerman and everyone in it is so committed that it's weighted. It doesn't feel like a complete farce. It's got some gravity to it. No, it's obviously a comedy, but it's this is really well structured.
And that thing at the end where Quark gets the whole thing a Latin, I mean, it's all fake.
I love it.
Just see him completely fall apart.
Bill, what's your take on these 5?
The lighter touch of Who Mourns for Morn comes in between Waltz and Far Beyond the Stars. So
right,
that's the 2 episodes that are about as heavy as it could possibly get. So yeah, I mean, it definitely. I'm not the hugest fan of it, but it comes at just the right time, and it's definitely funny, and it's silly. It's a good time for sure. But the Voyager episodes, especially Prey, is maybe one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. I think Matt put it perfectly. It's easy to think of it as Species 8472 and Tony Todd playing the Hirogen, but for me, it's all about Janeway and Seven just not being able to. They just can't connect at all on this issue, this problem. And I love the way you said that, Matt, that it forces Janeway to kind of look at herself, and she knows that Seven's right as far as like why Janeway's so upset.
Yeah, she just won't say it, and
she just won't say it. She's not going to admit it, but she knows.
No, and it makes you as a viewer kind of question your choices, because I don't know about you. I agreed with Seven.
Me too.
I'm glad she did what she did.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way that presents a choice. That I love it when Star Trek does that. There's a problem that's legit, like really. You can wrap your head around it. It's you can put yourself in the shoes of the character or the characters and put yourself in the argument and come down on one side or the other. And Prey does that as well as any Star Trek episode ever has.
Yeah, it's number 21 at TrekRanks, so it's really high.
It's classic.
It's a classic. All right, let's go to round one and finish this off. Matt, what's your round one run of 5 episodes?
So my round one. It's stereotypical, but I tried to include a couple of episodes and cut it off in a couple of episodes that I think are really important that I want to highlight. So, the first thing that people think of when it's a run of episodes, I would think is, especially the, 10-part ending of Deep Space Nine, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
But I also included some episodes before that, or at least one episode before that. So my last 5 are the run that includes Inter Arma Einam Sealant Legis, Penumbra, Till Death Do Us Part, Strange Bedfellows, closing out with The Changing Face of Evil, which happens to be my favorite of the 10-part finale.
Ooh, cool.
So Inter Arma I put in there because I think it's underrated because it comes right before the finale, so it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But again, Section 31 episode, check. Political intrigue, check. And that whole conversation between Ross and Bashir at the end, double check. I love that episode.
Yeah.
Plus Adrienne Barbeau. I just love her. I'll see anything that she's in.
I love her. Yeah, she's amazing.
And then of course we start off with the arc of Penumbra, Till Death Do Us Part, Strange Bedfellows, which do a great job of kind of rounding out and putting at peace the Worf and Esri arc.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's some great stuff. And of course, you get the big twist of the Breen entering the war. And The Changing Face of Evil is actually like kind of where my hashtag comes from, hashtag The Dominion Strikes Back. Because I consider, not to cross the streams, but I consider The Changing Face of Evil kind of the Empire Strikes Back of this run.
Oh, I like that.
Because everything goes wrong for them.
Mm-hmm.
And like my other like 5-word summary is that, don't worry, I won't cuss on here, but like Changing Face of Evil really represents the bleep hits the fan.
Yeah. I mean, it ends with the Defiant getting...
It ends with the Defiant getting destroyed. It opens with San Francisco being laid waste.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
And then it ends with Kai Wynn, like, killing her
Soulborn.
Yeah.
And then, but it's like the Empire Strikes Back where everything goes wrong. And then at the very end, there's this glimmer of hope when Damar sends his resist message.
Yeah.
It's so good. That scene is so good.
Yeah, that's really good breakdown. I never thought about it as the Empire Strikes Back, but
that's my favorite episode of that 10-part arc, and that's why I was okay with cutting off there with the understanding that the whole ending of Deep Space Nine is awesome.
I'm just glad you picked this arc because I looked at it, and I'm glad this arc is in this episode because I couldn't figure out where the 5 would be because there's a couple of episodes in there that kind of precluded me from picking it. But this is a great way to do it. I love this list, and you're right. It's not a 9-part finale; it's a 10-part finale because Inter Arnhem Enum Silent Legis needs to be included in that as well. Bill, what's your take on these 5?
I too am thrilled that there's representation from that last arc.
Yeah.
At the end of Deep Space Nine, I couldn't figure out a way either, Jim. I was right there with you. I tried. I kept trying to finagle a way and I even looked at that exact grouping that Matt used.
This is a great
one. And I echo. I think The Changing Face of Evil is the best episode of that run. I completely agree with that. So yeah, it's a great run. I didn't think of that first 3 episodes, Penumbra through Strange Bedfellows, as being sort of the, like you said, it really is right in front of my face. The culmination of the Dax Esri Worf dynamic. It really does kind of put the button on that for the rest of the show, in a really nice way. I like the way that they resolved that. It's a strong run.
I just checked my TrekRanks and I've got Changing Face of Evil at 30 and all the rest are right there in the 40s. So yeah, this is a good, really strong, solid run. And my 5 words and a hashtag for Changing Face of Evil, Ducat is now extra creepy. So, okay, let's go to Bill's round 1 run of 5 episodes.
I went with, 5 words and a hashtag, foundational Star Trek world building. Hashtag sets the tone. It is the Corbomite Maneuver, the Menagerie Parts 1 and 2, the Conscience of the King, and Balance of Terror. So pretty far back to the very, very beginning. I think the menagerie cannot be, I think, it can't be overstated what a huge deal it is incredible to have so early in the show, have a story, be self-aware of like the history of these characters and that other people served on this ship and that there's a lineage here. Like that's so integral to like what Star Trek is all these years later, that it's this long story with different characters coming and going and through time. And the menagerie right at the beginning, like establishes that that's something that the show's going to do. TOS doesn't do it very often. It never really does it again. And it's kind of a happy accident that they could do it, making use of an old pilot. But in 54 years later, it works perfectly. So that's so integral that still paying off to this day with Pike and Discovery Season 2, which we opened talking about. Balance of Terror with the introduction of the Romulans and all the big stuff that brings forward. The Corbin Maneuver is Star Trek to me in like a nutshell. If you wanted to show somebody like this is Star Trek in an hour, you have 1 hour to show somebody like what is Star Trek about? What does Star Trek do? Corbin Maneuver to me is about as perfect in a nutshell of a presentation of what the whole idea is in a short swoop. And The Conscience of the King is definitely the weak link of the 5, but I think it's really good. I think it's strong, and I think it's a good Kirk episode. I think it's one of Shatner's better performances as Kirk. It shed some light on his backstory and that this is a guy with some history and has seen some bad things in his life and dealt with rough times and is kind of scarred in this episode.
You know what? I gotta say, Conscience of the King, either consciously or unconsciously, provided the motivation for Thanos, if you think about it, in the Avengers, because Kodos made the decision, wipe out half so that the other half can live.
There you go.
Oh, that's the first time I've heard anybody make that. But it's totally true. It's literally he killed half the people. It's pretty good. That's pretty good. Oh, this list is awesome, Bill. I really, really strongly considered it as well. I didn't pull the trigger probably because of Conscience of the King, which I love, but it's not like it's not top tier for Star Trek TOS for me, but I do love it. And everything you said about the menagerie, I say this all the time. It is the reason Star Trek still exists 55, however many years later. To have 10 episodes in, you have Menagerie Part 1 and Part 2, just movie quality production. I just can't even fathom being at home watching this and saying, how the hell did they do this?
Plus, dare I say it, Discovery Season 2 has made the menagerie even better.
Oh, it absolutely has. I tweeted that during it. That I
knowing the history of the character, like whenever I watch the menagerie, I always liked it, but it's like, oh no, Pike was disabled, and isn't that sad and everything like that. And then I watched Discovery Season 2, and I was like, oh my god, now I love this character, and I know exactly what's going to happen to him. And that's why when we get to like Through the Valley of Shadows, it just ripped my heart out.
Yeah. The 5 together. I mean, now with if memory serves and Through the Valley of Shadows are all part of the cage and the menagerie to me. It's like 5 episodes that just work seamlessly.
I mean, what I like about that list is it's foundational Star Trek is what it is.
Yeah.
That lays the groundwork for what happens over the next 50 years. And I mean, Balance of Terror is just one of my favorite one-offs. I think it's top 5 TOS for me.
Yeah, me too.
All right, well, I love this list. I said I really considered it. And I did, but I went with another TOS list. And to do it, I went with production order instead of broadcast air. So this is my production order pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Seeds of Trek planted forever. Hashtag back to the beginning. It's from TOS late season 1 and the production order of Space Seed, This Side of Paradise, Devil in the Dark, Errand of Mercy, and The City on the Edge of Forever. I mean, come on. You Space Seed, Devil in the Dark, Errand of Mercy, and The City on the Edge of Forever with This Side of Paradise in there as well were produced 5 consecutive episodes at the end of a 30-episode season. So City on the Edge of Forever is episode 28 of the first season. Absolutely crazy. 4 of those were in my top 15, so I really couldn't go anywhere else. And by the way, Taste of Armageddon would have been at the front end of this list before Space Seed as well. So it's just an incredible run of TOS.
I was going to say, you just missed one of my favorite episodes. And Taste of Armageddon, I think, is so underrated. It's one of my absolute favorites of season 1.
Yeah, me too. I couldn't to keep that and then lose City on the Edge of Forever. So, Bill, I know The City on the Edge of Forever is your top episode of Trek, and so I'm assuming you're good with this list.
I'm very good with this list. In fact, I came so close because I'm small-minded, I guess, and I can't wrap my head around not using air date order, to be honest. I had until this morning on this list, in air date order, I had This Side of Paradise, Devil in the Dark, Errand of Mercy, The Alternative Factor, and The City on the Edge Forever, but I couldn't bring myself to do it.
The Alternative Factor.
Yeah, no, you couldn't. How could you do that?
You just can't do it. You can't. Well, I could have, but I toyed with it. But you definitely found the way to make it work, because this is, I mean, that's as good of a run of episodes as you're going to find over the course of the whole.
I suppose you could have done it if you really, really like watching Lazarus fall off a cliff.
You could, yeah.
Yes, 3 times.
The way I almost justified it is I think it kind of, I could twist myself into saying that it falls into the kind of, like I was talking about, like it's an interesting failure. Like it's such a colossally effed up production. If you read about like how the episode came to be, and the Lazarus stuff is like, it's so awful, but it's so messy that there's at least things to talk about. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like derivative, or it is dull and it is boring in my opinion. But is it good enough? Is it so bad that you sacrifice the whole of what you just kind of rattled off? And
you could do that, or you could do Khan and Spock in Love and the Horta and the debut of the Klingons and Edith Keeler Must Die, which is what these 5 episodes are, which is just crazy.
It's great stuff.
How it is. Okay, let's round it off here with some secondary systems picks. Matt, you got anything you want to rattle off?
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is, like, I didn't think of doing the thing where you choose 5 episodes and, 4 of them you really like and the other ones just kind of come with it.
Right.
My only favorite season here that's not represented in my list is TNG season 6. That's my favorite season of TNG.
Interesting.
And I think it has like some of my favorite runs of episodes, like I've got, Face of the Enemy and Tapestry.
Mm-hmm.
And Birthright's the one that I couldn't get into just because it's really not one of my favorites. But then you got Starship Mine, which is, Die Hard Picard is my favorite episode of that season. One of my favorite episodes of the series. So if I could just pick like a cobbled together list of TNG season 6, that would probably have been one of my secondary systems.
Well, I had a cobbled together one that it was a mix between DS9 and TNG. I had The Quality of Life, Chain of Command Part 1, Chain of Command Part 2, and then Emissary Part 1 and Part 2.
See, but that's why you're smarter than me. I didn't think of crossing the streams with the series.
Can you imagine that the broadcast order was Chain of Command, Emissary. I mean, that's
so good.
Bill, how about you? Any secondary systems?
The big one was the one that included the Alternative Factor, which I just couldn't do, of course. The other one that's kind of similar to that, piggybacking off of Matt, season 6 of TNG, there's Chain of Command 1 and 2, Ship in a Bottle, Aquael, and Face of the Enemy, which is for like grade A kind of episodes for me. Same kind of thing, the Vulcan trilogy and Enterprise season 4, Daedalus, which is the problem, and Observer Effect. I would love to figure out a way to do that, but Daedalus,
no chance.
Thanks.
Can't do it.
The real Enterprise the real Enterprise choice that was difficult for me to cut was Azadi Prime Through the Council. That's the one that was like the last cut of the bunch. I wanted to figure out a way to do that last, because I really love the end of season 3, that last push. But I kind of did it because it's somewhat incomplete. I had the same kind of trouble with that as I did with that last run of Deep Space Nine episodes, like finding a way to include.
It's funny you say that, because that was going to be my special shout out, was to basically a 16 episode run from Azadi Prime all the way through Kirshara, where Enterprise was just hitting home runs in every episode. I mean, you have all the end of that Xindi arc with the Council Countdown 0 Hour.
Yeah, Stormfront,
I love Stormfront, and then Home, and then the Augment trilogy and the Vulcan trilogy, all back to back to back, 16 straight episodes. Amazing. Matt, I also had that Face of the Enemy through Starship Mine on my secondary systems. That was a great one. I also had Past Tense, and then Caretaker, and then Parallax, because I think Parallax is really underrated. First single episode of Voyager.
I also so badly wanted to put the opening of TOS season 2 in there, because it's TOS season 2 is my favorite season of that show. But I had Who Mourns for Adonis and the apple staring me at the face. But,
I like those.
But
Bill, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask if either one of you had something, a run from Picard on the table at all too new, nothing that, like I did on my kind of close but can't list. I had Absolute Candor, Stardust City Rag, which kind of I'm less high on, which kind of dragged it down for me. The Impossible Box, Nepenthe, and Broken Pieces. Did either of you consider Picard?
That's where I was looking at too, but I just couldn't put it ahead of everything else. But that's probably where I would go. And I love Stardust City Rag.
You know what? I would have put it on my list, but the thing is that, you know, like I did with Discovery, it's the recency effect. So I got to see how it fits into the overall arc before I think the reason we're able to make a lot of these lists is because we've had so many years of perspective behind it.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'll close it out with my other toughest cut. One of them was your pick, Bill, with DS9, and then I have an Enterprise deep cut list of 5 in a row from season 3: The Shipment, Twilight, North Star, Similitude, and Carpenter Street. And I was really close to picking that because Carpenter Street was one that I didn't love when I first saw it, but now I adore it. And The Shipment, I think, is completely underrated. And, of course, Twilight and Similitude and North Star.
I'm not that crazy about North Star.
Oh, okay. What's wrong with you? Okay. Let's go to our regeneration cycle and go through some stats and some numbers on 75 episodes of Star Trek that we just discussed.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, Matt, let's run through your list of 25 awesome episodes of Star Trek. Go.
Okay, so number 5 was my run from Discovery Season 2, An Oval for Sharon, Saints of Imperfection, The Sound of Thunder, Light and Shadows, and If Memory Serves. My number 4 was the run through Voyager Season 5 with Timeless, Infinite Regress, Nothing Human, 30 Days, and Counterpoint. My number 3 was the Enterprise run Season 4, Babel 1, United, the ENR, Affliction, and Divergence. My number 2 was the opening of DS9 Season 3, so The Search 1 and 2, House of Quark, Equilibrium, and Second Skin. And my number 1 was that block from DS9 Season 7, so Inter Arma Einum, Silent Legis, Penumbra, Till Death Do Us Part, Strange Bedfellows, and The Changing Face of Evil.
Amazing. Well done going through 25 episodes. You had 2 from Deep Space Nine, 1 from Enterprise and Voyager and Discovery. Fantastic. Bill, let's hear your list.
Number 5, I had Discovery Season 1, Into the Farthest I Go, Despite Yourself, The Wolf Inside, Vaulting Ambition, and What's Past is Prologue. Number 4, I had a cross between Voyager Seasons 5 and 6, Equinox Part 1 and Part 2, Survival Instinct, Barge of the Dead, and Tinker, Tenor, Dr. Spy. Number 3, Deep Space Nine Seasons 1 and 2, Duet, In the Hands of the Prophets, The Homecoming, The Circle, and The Siege. Number 2, TNG Season 3, Deja Q, A Matter of Perspective, Yesterday's Enterprise, The Offspring, and Sins of the Father. Number 1, TOS Season 1, The Corbomite Maneuver, The Menagerie Parts 1 and 2, Conscience of the King, and Balance of Terror.
Incredible. So you spread it around 5 different series here. TOS, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Discovery all represented. That's cool. And my list, round 5, from Deep Space Nine, Broadcast Order, The Adversary, The Way of the Warrior, The Visitor, Hippocratic Oath, and Indiscretion. My round 4 was from TNG and Deep Space Nine in chronological stardate order: The Wire, Preemptive Strike, Crossover, All Good Things, and The Collaborator. Round 3 was Voyager broadcast order. I had Riddles, Dragon's Teeth, One Small Step, The Voyager Conspiracy, and Pathfinder. And then my round 2 was a mix of Deep Space Nine and Voyager from the broadcast order. Message in a Bottle, Who Mourns for Morn, Hunters, Far Beyond the Stars, and Prey. And my number 1 was from TOS production order: Space Seed, This Side of Paradise, The Devil in the Dark, Errand of Mercy, and The City on the Edge of Forever. So I had a mix of TNG and Deep Space Nine, a mix of Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and then also a DS9 list, a Voyager list, and a TOS list. Okay, we're breaking down some numbers here. There's a lot here, but we just picked 75 episodes of Star Trek. The series represented the most were Deep Space Nine with 4 and Voyager with 3. And then Discovery and TOS each had 2, while Enterprise and TNG had one each, and then there was a mixed list from me from TNG and Deep Space Nine and Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Everybody picked broadcast order for 13 of our 15 picks. I also had a production and a chronological order. And then the episode representation was 5 episodes from Enterprise, only 7 from TNG, so that's a bit of a surprise. 10 episodes each from TOS and Discovery, 18 episodes from Voyager, and of course, Deep Space Nine, not a surprise for me, 25 episode selection, so a full third of our 75 different episodes that we just discussed on TrekRanks. A new record. I love it. Way too much fun.
Yeah, I'm just a DS9 fanatic.
Well, when you really, really cut through it, it always seems to rise to the top for people's favorites. Okay, awesome job, guys. As always, though, we have once again entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
And for this week's temporal causality loop, we're going back to episode 76 and our top 5 comedic characters. And we got another awesome voicemail in to cover this great topic. And it was from Deb Moltisanti, who is at Silverdoe25 on Twitter. I love this list. Here is her great list of top 5 comedic characters.
Good morning, Jim. It's Debbie calling in with my top 5 comedic episodes. I want to applaud everybody on the episode. I was applauding you guys. Some of your picks were fantastic. I'm going to start with mine. In number 5 is my favorite Zach Dorn quartermaster, Klim Dakachan from Unification Part 1. I look forward to seeing him almost as much as Commander Spock. And I love the contact scheduling and cuts off the transmission. I just love the scenes that he is in that episode. My number 4 pick, Commander William T. Riker. My episode that I'm picking for the moment is the Pegasus and the entire exchange during Captain Picard Day, especially his little puppet clay figure all beyond the bridge. Riker is hilarious, teasing the captain. My soup round pick is Fire Up the Torpedoes, Captain James T. Kirk. You already mentioned tons of my favorite moments, including the ones that I was thinking of from The Trouble with Tribbles, all of his interactions with Niels Barris. So I will pick one from Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, the argument with Spock in the truck, and I love Italian, and so do you. My number 2 pick, I am going with somebody from Star Trek Picard also, and it's going to be Captain Rios and his variety of EHs, EMH, ENH, the hospitality hologram, and now Emmett. I love all of his interactions with all of them so far. He wants them, he needs them, but then he swishes them off when he no longer has a use for them. I love how they are funny, and it also contributes to the depth of his emerging character. And finally, I could not get away from top 5 comedic without my favorite duo, Quark and Odo. I think there are so many moments when they interact humorously, and I have to quote my favorite one, which is from Way of the Warrior. Dear Quark, used parts from your disruptor to fix the replicators. Will return them soon. Rom. I will kill him. With what? Thanks so much for another fantastic episode. I love TrekRanks. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
All right, so I love that list because, her number 1 pick was that exchange with Quark and Odo is just amazing. That's a brilliant moment. And B, she picked the driest straight man character in Trek history from Unification, the Zach Dorn quartermaster for the Federation Surplus Depot Z-15, Mr. Klim Dakachan. Or Dakachan. I've heard it both ways. I love that pick because that guy is super dry and hilarious. All right, great list from Deb. More than enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal causality loop. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Keep them coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them, but we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 run of 5 episodes or any list from our past shows and give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527 at 609-512-LLAP, where you can just, record yourself and send me a link via DM and we can download it that way too if that's easier. All right, hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are returning to my favorite TrekRanks series. It's our top 5 scenes in Trek series, which I think both you guys have done before. We're doing top 5 scenes in sickbay. It's our 7th scenes in Trek episode. We've done Turbo Lift, Jeffrey's Tube, Shuttlecraft, the Brig, on location, in a cave, and now we're doing sickbay. So Bill and Matt, if you guys had to choose off the top of your head, one top 5 scene in a sick bay, what would it be? Matt, let's do it.
Jeez, you're putting me on the spot here. I will say one of the top scenes in sick bay that took me aback just because it was so shocking what just happened was the death of Dr. Culber.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to pick that. Oh, man, that was brutal. As soon as you started going there,
I mean, you asked me to pick something that had an impact on me. That's the first thing that came to mind when you said sick bay.
It's a great pick and a memorable moment, obviously, from that first season of Discovery. Bill, how about you, man? What's the scene in sick bay?
The first one that came to mind was the end of Journey to Babel.
Yes. Sure a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be hard pressed to keep that one off my list.
It's such a classic. Like, I guess just raw, exactly like what popped into my head as you said it. It was that, and I was trying to go through my memory banks and find other things, and I nothing was coming to mind the exact way that did. So
if I had to pick a funny one, it would be Bashir healing everyone's baseball injuries in the middle of Take Me Out to the Holosuite.
That's a good one too. All right.
It is.
It's going to be a fun topic. There's a ton of, there's a lot going on in sick bay in Star Trek. So there's a lot to choose from. All right. So before we wrap it up, a huge thanks to Bill Mann and Matt Hansen. Great to have you guys on again. Any final Trek subspace transmissions you guys want to relay before you depart, Bill?
Yeah, I would just say, follow me on Twitter at TrekFan4387. Chime in on episode reviews and rankings and all kinds of fun stuff. And then stop by Trek Live on usually Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern time, to just have a casual Star Trek conversation on YouTube.
Highly recommended. Everyone should follow Bill for sure. And Matt, how about you, man? Hope you had fun coming back on again.
It was absolutely fantastic. I thank you both for having me on. Discussing Trek is so much fun. Again, you can follow me at mhansen0207, HANSEN, and just to all the people out there in podcast land, stay safe. It's a tough time, but we're here talking Trek, and Star Trek's always there. So especially in this time of great hardship, I would say Trek on.
That is the truth.
Here.
That is the truth. All right, guys, appreciate it. I just want to thank everyone again for engaging with us here on episode 82 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
I want to know how you feel about it.
Oh, I think it's great. We'll see a lot more of each other.
I was thinking about what Dak said. Maybe I should get quarters on the station.
That's a big step.
What does that mean?
I just meant it's a big step.
A bad big step or a good big step?
A good one.
Could you muster up a little more enthusiasm?
I am enthusiastic. I'm proud of you. This job.
Forget about the job. I'm talking about us. I tell you I'm thinking about living on the station, and all you can say is, it's a big step?
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
It's a big step. That's all you said.
That's all.
You're sure?
Positive.
What do you think, Julian?
It's ambiguous, definitely open to interpretation. But it could have been worse. He could have said, it's a very big step.
You didn't say that, did you?
I don't think so.
Well, that's good anyway. So, what does he do now?
Well, it's simple. He goes to Cassidy, admits that everything was his fault, and pledges his undying love.